call the work session of Bellefonte Council to order at 6:15. And we will start with some welcoming comments. Welcome to the public who are here. There's no council action being taken at tonight's work session. We'll do that during the business meeting if it's on the agenda. With that, we'll have a trivia question from Mr. Johnson standing in for Mr. Bernier.
Yeah, thanks. Sure. Mr. Bernier gave me a question, but I decided to change it up a little bit. So this is history of Bellefonte. I hope it's accurate. Quit looking at my cheat sheet.
Wandering eye.
One might say that Bellefonte plant was originated through a visit and inquisitiveness. S.A. Dockery and C.H. Troop, who had been employed by the Hanover Match Company of Hanover, PA, were on a visit to Bellefonte when they became acquainted with F.W. Kreider. F.W. Kreider was operating a plant where the match factory is, okay? And after talking with these two gentlemen, they broke ground for the match factory. What was the plant manufacturing when these two gentlemen came to visit before the match factory building ground was broken? Any ideas?
Cars.
So I'm not sure if the match factory building was partially there. I know it says in this that they broke ground for the match factory after a conversation, but there was a factory there. And what were they producing? Any? Okay. The latter was operating a plant making small sticks for holding candy preparations. So it sort of makes sense.
Popsicle sticks.
Yeah, they don't say popsicle sticks, but it could have been that. So, check it out.
There was rumors that that was on the other side along Potter Street,
Well, it could
and it
have.
supposedly burned around 1930 something.
This was done on October 6, 1898. As a result, Kreider, in conjunction with Reynolds and Montgomery, organized the Pennsylvania Match Company of Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Ground was broken for the erection of the plant in early spring of 1899.
Wow.
J.W. Black and E.J. Tiemann of Hanover, Pennsylvania, are also previously employed by Hanover Match Company, then came to Bellefonte. The erection of the buildings and the machines known as the coiler system progressed rapidly. The manufacture of the matches started in January of 1900.
Okay.
That's the information.
All right, good. Very nice.
Thank you for that. And we'll move into CDBG project selection. You doing that, Dawn?
You wanted to give a summary, Dawn?
Well, I guess I can. I mean, at the last meeting, or it was a few meetings ago, we had the first public hearing. Mitzi Gallagher Long, who's the CEDACOG representative that administrates the program on behalf of the county, and as a sub-grantee, Bellefonte Borough, was soliciting all types of, comments from council on what they would like to use their 22 CDBG funds for. It's approximately $97,000 in funding. You have to make your selection this evening. We, after giving it some thought, we think there's two potential projects that, you could choose. One would be the suspension bridge in Talleyrand Park. It would be replacing the boards and removing the barrier to make it ADA compliant, which would add some ramps on each end of the bridge. The other option that we think would be a fundable project for the borough would be to allocate the funding to LMI groups for sidewalk replacement, and that would be just based on individual households within the LMI block group that is within what we would call probably our downtown Burnside Street areas.
Would that also include the possibility of people who meet that criteria that are not in that area, like people with disabilities? Because I understand CDBG funds can
That might be, Joanne. I mean, we could check on that. I can't answer that because I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I would just mention, a lot of the projects that we suggested really don't meet the criteria that CDBG, you have to abide by. A lot of good ideas and suggestions, but trying to make things work really boiled down to just a couple projects.
Anybody else have any thoughts? My thinking is, from when we talked about this, I guess it was at the agenda planning, but
Yeah.
possibly, but it sounded like the money would be better used for the suspension bridge, for the number of people that would be using it, to add the ramps to it and get that bridge repaired.
Just out of curiosity, so we will be actually making a very long, slow slope up to the suspension bridge, or what?
It wouldn't be, we would
Or
probably,
it would
yes,
zigzag up.
that's how it'd be certain, come up, have a little ramp and then go
Little flat
back.
space.
Yeah,
Switchback.
is what we would be thinking, Joanne. And I will say this, I mean, we did put in a grant application to DCNR, I think it was 2 years ago for that project. That bridge, if underneath the support structure is not in good health, so at some point, the borough will have to,
Would we be doing it with that same stuff that we did on the flat portion, or would it be wood?
that's what I would probably use if we, decided to go that route. That's what I would propose
Because
anyway.
it'll last much longer.
Yeah. It's the Amera board that we used on the pedestrian bridge.
Does this come up in the meeting? This comes
Yes,
under new business,
I think it
correct?
is under new business.
So those two options we have available, so when we get to that in the new business in the main meeting, we'll bring that up and we'll see what the motion is at that point. Okay.
One more question on this. I know that we have other funds that we haven't expended yet for the CDBG. How is that related to these funds?
The only funding that we haven't expended would be the 2 years funding that we've applied to the streetscape world. We are in the process right now of hiring a design engineer. The CDBG and the TASA, the PennDOT TASA grant for $325,000 we got, plus the $200,000 gives us about a $500,000 project to do streetscapes on South Spring and West Bishop. We're gonna try to do it simultaneously. The TASA process might take a little bit longer because there's more things that you have to go through, in the design phase, more approvals from PennDOT. But, so that's all we have, other than the $50,000 of the CDBG ARPA money that is now being used for individuals and vehicles, and I have no idea, since we've switched that over, where that stands, if, people are out utilizing that at this point or not, Joanne.
Okay.
So really, other than the $180,000 for the streetscapes, we've exhausted all other years of
Well, it's
CDBG
good that we
funding.
finally caught up.
Yeah. And caught up to the point where we as a borough are no longer really that involved. So even on the audits, the reporting, that's all being done by CEDACOG now.
Any more discussion on that topic? Seeing none, we'll move into review of the SR short-term, I'm sorry, it is the short-term rental proposed ordinance.
Yeah.
Committee felt that we were at a position to bring this to council to get some ideas or thoughts from what was provided in the packet. Did you provide both?
No, it
Just
is
the main?
just provided what.
Okay. That's good, because I got confused on that. Okay. All right, so we'll go into the ordinance review. Deb, how do you want to handle this? You want to go just down each paragraph and handle it that way?
I think we can just go through it a paragraph at a time. The committee did meet with members of the community and also short-term rental owners. Got a lot of very constructive input from both groups. It helped us to much better understand the nature of this particular business model. So the proposed draft that's in front of you is really condensed down to just deal with the very key points that would pertain to the borough. A lot of the short-term rental criteria is actually handled by Center Region. When the property owner applies for a permit, Center Region determines occupancy level, the condition of the building, whether or not it's appropriate for a rental. And those things are already determined before anybody can actually operate one of these businesses. So we have changed a lot of the language. If you want to look at the definitions, those have been pared way down. And at this point, whether a property is owner occupied or non-owner occupied is really irrelevant. But we do have the definitions in there. So if you have somebody who is owner occupied but they're out of town for 6 months, it's not going to change their status as a short-term rental
If they
property owner,
already have a permit.
as long as they're permitted. I think it also, we re-explained family in this.
Mhm.
We also changed the length of consecutive nights for short-term and long-term rentals. Previously, it was, for short-term rentals, it was increments of 14 days or fewer. We've extended that to 29 days or fewer, or nights, because under the definition of a long-term rental, those are 30 days or longer.
So there was this gap between 14 and 30 to make sense.
So if a short-term rental business wants to have somebody there for 3 weeks, that fits within the criteria here.
Now, you're on page, these aren't
That's
marked,
actually the top of page 3.
Excuse me, Deb, can I
Mhm.
just ask one question about that? I'm sorry, go ahead, I'll get it later.
Okay. The borough will be setting the permit fees. I think there's a different level of permit fee for long-term and short-term rentals.
Right now, rentals you pay a rental fee for 3 years.
Could you speak up, please?
I said, for for long-term rentals, we have a one fee for every 3 years. Short-term rentals, based on the models that we've seen elsewhere, that would be an annual fee because there are more oversight and review that the borough needs to do.
Okay, so the property owner would have to provide hazard and liability insurance with minimum coverage, specifying that the coverage is specifically for rental properties, and also naming the borough of Bellefonte as an additional insured. So if something happens, the borough is not liable.
That's why I was gonna
Right.
ask if you can explain the purpose of that. So the borough is not held liable for
Right.
anything then?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of similar to the programs we support. We get requests, for the parks and things like that.
They always
They
have to
include
list
Bellefonte
those.
on the insurance.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you.
Then under the permitting, no person, firm, or corporation shall for any duration of time advertise for rent without first applying for and receiving a short-term rental permit from the borough. So if somebody's operating one of these establishments and they're not permitted, I think there's a 30-day, once this ordinance passes, there's 30 days for them to apply for a permit or they're not allowed to operate at all.
Can you guys hear us back there?
It's
Not
difficult.
really.
If you want to move up, you're welcome to come up this way.
Hope you don't come.
You can come all the way up.
Go- run into something.
You can keep me in line over here.
So under this section, the requirements for applying for and receiving a permit are defined.
I have a question, Deb, on item B under permit required. It's listed as short-term rental permits are not transferable upon change in ownership. What I've seen in others is that they're non-transferable. I know it means the same, but the language just looks a little different. Should that be changed to not
Is that, where
non?
do you see the other?
B, under permit required, short-term rentals are not
He's
transferable
using-
upon
he
change of
wants it to be
ownership.
non-transferable.
Okay, we can change that.
Just picking on a word.
I think what we're probably gonna do is have to tweak that one to say that within like 30 days of the transfer or something like that, because there's no place to match C in general, but to say that when you transfer, you also have that 30 days.
But that would not be applicable to properties in the R1 or the R2 districts. It's not a transferable, permits are not transferable.
Right,
If,
so
if somebody purchases a property,
they're gonna have to reapply.
they have to start from scratch and go through Center Region and also through the borough to get a whole new set
Okay.
of permits.
That's how I understood that.
Just to back up a little bit, what did you base the 60 nights, 29 consecutive nights and the 60 nights? I read the College Township one.
I think it says 14 and
They
45.
have 14 consecutive nights and 45 cumulative nights.
Right.
What,
We expanded that based on input from the short-term rental property owners and the different business models that they presented to us, because they're all different. And we also are proposing the same language change to the bed and breakfast ordinance. And what it does is it extends the number of nights per year that any of these properties can have guests there. What we did when we changed the 14 consecutive nights to 29 was to fall more in line with the definitions of short-term and long-term rentals. Long-term rentals are 30 nights or more, short-terms are 29 or less.
so in our original ordinance we wrote, it was much less than that. The original proposed ordinance.
Our original proposed ordinance was the 14 consecutive nights and 45 total nights per year.
original one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But we changed it now. to-
We were proposing to extend it to 60 days. Some of the property owners wanted 180. So,
Doesn't matter what they want, it's what we
So-
decide.
well, we're trying to come up with a model that works for the property owners
And the residents.
and for the residents and also for the borough.
Yeah, good. And my other question is, if you look at College Township's item E, to operate a short-term residential rental, the following conditions shall apply. Guest vehicles shall not park on public streets or shared
That's
private
in-
That's
streets.
in here.
That's in-
I didn't see.
We
it
haven't
where-
got there
We
yet.
haven't gotten there.
Yeah, well, I read through it before, but
It is-
doggone it, I
it's-
missed it then.
It's under short-term rental operating requirements.
Short-term rental,
Towards the end of the whole thing.
okay. I'll find it. Short-term rental.
It's highlighted, the topic line is highlighted in black. It's 575.
Girls,
Right there.
It's 575 XX short-term rental operating on
Yep.
page 5.
Well, the pages on mine are numbered.
Um,
Yeah, I know it's in here.
Okay, well, if it's in there, I'll find it. Parking,
Oh, to operate a short-term rental, the following conditions shall apply. In the R1 and R2 residential districts, guest vehicles shall not park on public street or shared private street, but shall be parked wholly on the rental
Perfect.
property.
good.
So if there's a short-term rental in any other district in the borough, the waterfront, downtown business,
You can park
go,
on the
yeah,
street.
whatever, then they can park, as long as it's within the guidelines of our parking ordinance, they can park on the street. And also as far as the R2 and R1 and R2 districts in the borough, the properties that are currently permitted and operating under a current permit can continue as long as they meet all the code requirements and they up their permit every year. If the property is sold, what's the wording? The conditional,
The conditional.
Non-conforming.
non-conforming.
Non-conforming conditional.
Right,
Follows the
non-conforming
property
conditional.
not
Will
required.
stay with the property, but the new owner then has the option, if they go through the permitting process, to do a short-term rental, but if they don't, and the property is not used as a rental for a one-year period, then that non-conforming status goes away. So there will be a time period over which the properties that are currently operating in the R1 and R2 will stop being rental properties, because not everybody is going to want to do that or continue to do that. So that, based on the information that we have from our solicitor, since those permitted properties already have non-conforming status, we can't change that. So this is a way to accommodate that temporary status that will run out over time and eventually shift all the short-term rentals to other districts in the borough besides the residential.
So Deb, I have a question on, under application for short-term rental permits, it says, short-term rentals are not permitted in the R1 or R2 districts of the borough. And then when you go to the next page, at the top, it says, the short-term rental properties permitted in the R1 or R2 districts of the borough of Bellefonte prior to date of enactment may apply for short-term rental permit renewal as a pre-existing non-conforming use. Would it make more sense to take that item A and add it to the item A under application for short-term rentals? Because it's, while one is saying they're not allowed, the other one is allowing,
Well,
because they're already existing, but shouldn't,
Right.
couldn't
But
that live with that?
We did have some of that language originally under the short-term rental permits, and that is basically for new permit applications, somebody starting
Well,
from
that's my
scratch.
point, because looking at this, they'll be doing permits, they're already permitted. This doesn't look like a requirement, but in order to get the permits, it seems to fit in that terminology more than it does operating requirements, in my view.
Well, even to change the wording under A, you could possibly put new short-term rentals are not permitted in the R1 or R2 districts of the borough.
That was in there originally when we talked about it, and I don't know whether Gina took it out when she was cleaning it up.
So under short-term rental
Add the word new.
permits, just add new short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, which one are you changing?
A.
A, under application for short-term rentals,
So,
no short-term
No
rentals
new short-term
are
rentals.
permitted in R1 or R2 districts of the borough.
Gina isn't here, Ralph, but
Yes.
she may have written it that way because the date when she stopped allowing new was already, it was a couple months ago. So the way this would be written, it would be when this is enacted, they stop. But in actuality, they stopped prior to that because of the comments from the solicitor.
That's correct, but she's doing that as the zoning administrator, but this is the ordinance that clarifies it, so we
Okay.
can clarify it.
Then that's what I'm looking at is when you put no new in there, that no new is gonna stay there for years. And it basically becomes
It just-
useless. Because you know that we're not putting any new
Mhm.
short-term rentals in residential areas. That's why I thought that the one that's under operating requirements would fit better under the short-term rental permit part. Because then it covers both. Well, maybe you add, while short-term rentals are not permitted in R1 or R2 districts of the borough, short-term rental properties permitted in R1 or R2 districts of the borough of Bellefonte prior to date of enactment may apply for short-term rental permit renewal as a pre-existing non-conforming use. And that's basically how that would change that, and then would move everything else from a,
Okay.
So you'd keep A here, and then
Yes.
just take this
that
one here
and move
and
it
put
with
it
it.
here.
Would that be like a indent one down or just a continuing?
It would become part of A under short-term rental permits. So then on the other one, on the A we're removing, those letters would go to A, B, C, D.
Okay.
And I think if we do that, I think we
BCD.
need to say previously permitted, because the other, I think, right next to each other, I think it would become,
Or current.
yeah.
We need something in there for the existing short-term rental properties to know that they are,
Right. I'd say like short-term rental properties currently permitted prior to.
Well, this has date of enactment. I mean, there's no ordinance right now.
well, that's why I put date of enactment in parentheses. And our committee is meeting next Monday, so we can
We're gonna,
clean this up.
Is there any thought, I'm assuming I have the correct version of this. It's under short-term rental operating requirements, item E, 575-XX. Item E, owner of short-term rental may not stay in recreational vehicle parked on premises or anywhere in the blah, 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 blah. Do we need to be, I mean, what if they pitch a tent, or if they stay in a shed on the property? I mean, do we need to, I mean, are we trying to say they can't stay on the property in something else, other than a recreational vehicle? So, let's say they have a shed that has power in it, and they could spend a night or two in there without disturbing anybody.
I think what we called this, Doug, was a lawyer question.
Oh, you already asked the
We didn't
question.
ask, but I think that was, when we had that conversation,
yeah.
there was a discussion, how can we not
Broaden
allow
it.
that? Is that overreaching? Because it's based on what's in the
Large
storage
vehicle.
and parking of RVs.
That's where
Okay.
this comes out.
I get the RV,
Okay, so if this camper is in the backyard
yeah.
and it's just using a generator or something like that, why can't the owner stay in it? Is my
So,
question.
Gina, we talked about this, she said that this ordinance number
Yeah.
530.
530-41.
On parking and storing of large vehicles, she said that they do make waivers in certain cases, so the most recent waiver that actually has someone living in a large RV is the house on West Lynn Street that had the fire, and the inside of the house is gutted, so they needed a place to stay, so as a zoning officer, she waived that particular ordinance while they're repairing the house. But she says it's a very limited sort of thing, the way that ordinance is written, that you can actually do that.
And
So-
again, in my view, if they're following the proper storage and being behind the house, they're not in the street, they're behind, at the back of the house in the driveway or wherever it might be, I think it could be allowable, and they'd still have to get a permit
To live in that
to stay
shed.
there for a weekend or whatever it is.
So I'm just using this as an example. So if I rent my house and I have a shed out back, I can go stay there for the weekend without any worries. I don't have to have
The only
Center,
thing you have to worry
I don't have to
about
have Center Region Code come in and inspect it.
No, but you won't have a bathroom, you won't
No.
have.
Well, no, I'll go over the sheets or rudders and take a shower there. I mean, I'm.
Actually, I think, I just, this is not, I'm not being legal,
Yeah.
but up under the definitions, we have a
Dwelling.
dwelling unit, which says a single unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. So if your shed doesn't have all of that, you can't stay
Right.
there.
So how do we know that?
Wait a minute. If you have a shed, you can do that. This is way off track here, I think.
You can live in your shed.
Yeah, absolutely. If I go stay in my shed, there is nothing anybody can do about it on my property. I don't know why this is important to this at all.
Well, because it says you can't stay in your recreational vehicle.
That's an RV, but we wanted to expand it to you can't sleep in a tent
But no,
if someone's staying in
this
your
is tied
house.
to the RV storage, but if somebody, let's say they have company come and they have an RV behind their house, they can get a permit and stay in that RV.
Sure, I understand that.
Okay,
but-
so do they need a permit to live in the shed then?
They
too?
I would say probably yes.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Well,
for people that are renting your house, no, nobody stays there, but if you want to rent your house out and go sleep in the shed, I think that's micromanaging and it's overstepping.
Well, I disagree.
Okay,
Because there were rumors about things going on, people
Yeah.
connecting to things they're not supposed to connect to. I don't think.
I don't know what that means.
Temporary electricity, plumbing,
Okay. But
it's
if
illegal, you can't do that.
but if I have electric on my property,
If you have a shed with electricity in it, it has to be inspected.
okay.
So,
But, I mean, I know there was rumors going around about what was going on with one of the owners. And based on what I saw when we did that visit, that wasn't the case. Where they looked like there was digging going on, it was a line being extended from the house to pull the water away from the house.
It was a
Was all that was.
French
French
drain.
drain. But again, if we leave it in and have our legal team take a look at it and see what they come back with, it's kind of where we thought we'd go with that.
So this site needs to be sent this part.
So does that mean if I get mad at my husband, I can't kick him out to my shop that has electricity to sleep out there for the night?
No, that's kind of where Barb's leading is.
No, it already has electricity, and I'm saying,
It's your
I'm not
property.
allowed,
Again,
okay, so why is that any different?
It's your property, I know.
I don't think it's any different for this. I think we're trying to micromanage things.
Yeah, I agree.
I understand the recreational vehicles, that's a totally different thing. Because we already have an ordinance on that.
I'm wondering though why is that even in there? Has that come up? Did you say that has come up, that people were,
It's been rumored that people are doing
okay,
it. So
but
it's-
if we have the ordinance, why do we have to include that in there?
Right, that's very.
If they're violating a different ordinance for whatever reason, then you cite them for that.
I know, the thing we talked about, because we had that question, was that if we people are going to go through this ordinance to see what they can and can't do for a short-term rental. They are probably unlikely to go through all of our other ordinances to find out how they match together. And so we thought that it would be a good idea to refer to the ordinance on the recreational vehicle so that it was easy for the person who is trying to do a short-term rental to know what they can and can't do.
Did we do permits for parking of the rental, the RVs? Is that a permit or is
Well,
it?
it's not, you're not,
It's just part
only
of the order.
temporary. I mean, if we had a temporary permit, like if you came in, but ordinarily, you're not to be parked on the street.
No, but I'm saying if somebody's parked behind their house or past, what the guidelines are,
We
there's no
don't,
permit.
we don't permit
We
them.
don't permit all
Yeah.
on your
Then there
property.
shouldn't be a permit for this. So, again, if we leave it in, let legal take a look at it, see what
Well,
they come back with.
put a question and somewhere you can vote that in or out, when you get down to that point.
Okay.
You've got, we gotta have to have a public hearing, get input. Eventually, you're gonna get to the point of voting, but you can wait a while to address that at some point.
So isn't there an ordinance, the square footage of a lot determines how many rental units you can have on a property?
Well, it determines whether you're like a single family or duplex based on square footage on a property, yes.
So if you're living in your shed and you're renting your house out, does that make two rentals?
It's possible.
There's a section in here that says if you have 2 dwelling units, and that's where that
Yeah.
dwelling unit definition comes in, and you want to do both of them as a short-term rental, you have to get a separate permit for each one.
I don't think that's what he's asking.
Okay.
He's asking if say a single-family home property inadvertently becomes a duplex property, is that okay? Someone moves out and creates the shed as a second home on the same property.
There's a
We
minimum
call that a
square lot
duplex.
footage size.
We
to
call
have
that a
two.
property with a duplex.
So that's basically what you're doing. You're moving out of your house and you're living in another unit on your property. If that happens.
Isn't that a zoning?
It's a
That's a
zoning
zoning
issue,
issue.
yeah, of
That's a
course,
zoning.
yes. The zoning would kick in and letters would start and that kind of
In
thing.
other words, you can't take a 1/3 acre lot and put 3 rental units on
It
it.
depends on square footage, but
Yeah.
probably not, yeah.
Now we have to go to the planning commission
Yeah.
and zoning.
Well, again, if you're gonna use it like that, then you do need to be hooked to water, electric, sewer, all that stuff. But in this case, what we're just talking about is a temporary, kind of a stayover for the owner. So I don't know how
Okay.
that breaks down.
Okay.
I don't know either.
Do we have to address how many days they stay in the shed or the RV?
Is it short term or long term?
29 days?
Yeah.
So the person staying in the home, so the other person is, the owner's removed.
Well, we've had our meetings in the past. The concern was the non-owner isn't around. Here, when we argued about that, and now we have where the owner wants to be able to stay there when possible, and we're kicking that around.
Right.
So I don't, we need to come up to a reasonable way of doing things with these short-term rentals and.
Right, I guess I have another question or comment on the length of time with the short-term rentals, 29 consecutive nights and no more than 60 nights per calendar year. What should be our concerns with going over 60? Because I'm not seeing any, but I would certainly like to hear why we want to stop people from going over 60.
Right now, when we set this up, we looked at what bed and breakfasts were doing because they had more nights than short-term did. So we equaled, that's because originally it was 30 days for the short-term. Then we bumped it to 45, and now we bumped it to 60.
Right, but
And-
bed and
But
breakfast
the
can
thing
have
is,
people
with-
come in any time,
With
right?
the
No,
29, with the
They
20,
they
Not
can't.
currently, no.
Okay.
No, we're trying to match the bed and breakfast times with the
We-
short-term rentals.
just-
So
just-
both of them will end up with 60. Right
And
now, it's
that's all the more a bed and breakfast can do
but what
here?
I understood, unless this changed during a meeting that I wasn't at, with the 29 days and the 60 days, you don't count the 29 days. Because some of the, and this is where we're talking about different rentals. Because
I'm-
one of the folks who own a short-term rental would sometimes rent out to traveling nurses.
Right.
And they would stay there
for 6 weeks.
for 6 weeks, something like that. So that that 30 days was put in for that type of scenario for short-term rental.
So,
But in College Township, and I thought we did the same thing, College Township does that where they'll allow them a specific amount of time for like a long-term, but it doesn't go against, doesn't count into the,
so if someone
60 days
decides,
and
has a
the short-term.
short-term rental property, maybe this will help that.
Okay.
If they have a short-term rental and they do the 6-week traveling nurse, and so that traveling nurse is going to stay there more than 29 days. That point, they need to, the short-term rental owner, if they don't already have it, has to apply for a long-term rental permit.
Okay.
So they would have 2 permits for the same property.
Okay.
So they may end up doing it for 9 months of the year because they've got someone that's going 6.5 months, and then they've got the 60 days for the short term.
Right, the limit on the short-term rentals would be 60 days, but if somebody also wants to use their property for longer terms, like the 6 weeks or visiting professors or whatever, then they would also have a long-term rental permit, which would accommodate those longer stays.
Okay.
And then those days don't
Count
count
towards the
the short-term
short-term
The
rental
other
days.
ones, so it looks like we would then be encouraging people to do both when they could.
If that's
They
what their
could.
business model is.
But if they have a long-term and a short-term, can they do, then they can combine all the days into one? Is that how that works?
They do not, on an annual basis, if you look elsewhere in the operating, they have to do an annual report of the days and number of people staying at each of the short-term rentals. Those that go 30 days or more are not reported in that particular
In the
one.
short-term, okay.
Partially because the state law says with the hotel tax, you only tax them on those that are less than 30 days. So it's a separate baby.
Okay, so it's 2 different parts of the business. But I guess then getting back to my original question, is there, why do we want to limit the number of days?
this is in residential. This is not.
understand
It's
that.
only residential.
I understand
And
that.
because they're not favored in residential, the purpose of making them non-conditional is to give them an out if they sell a current short-term rental, then the owners can either do one of 2 things: buy it as a family dwelling, or keep it as a short-term
Okay,
rental.
And
what do you mean by not favored?
Our
Residents aren't happy
residents
with some
don't
short-term
want,
business.
a lot of the residents don't want any short-term rentals at all.
Okay,
This
'cause-
is a compromise.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I have not had the opportunity to talk to anyone, and I've put it out there many times to talk to anybody that was interested in it. So I have not heard from anyone that it was any kind of a problem, because from what I understand, we have had no problems with our short-term rentals.
And again, I think it's the number of days, I think we need to get this thing started where everything's working the way it's supposed to work under an ordinance and not the way it's working right now.
Oh,
And then
I
we could
totally
see,
agree.
then we could see what could happen later on down the road.
We've worked hard in this borough to keep the rentals under the threshold of when the borough starts to decline with rental properties.
I understand
We are
that.
near that threshold right now.
Oh, I know,
And,
I know.
and we've worked really hard to recreate our residential areas, especially in the historic districts, converting them from rental units, long-term, to residential homes.
No, I
And
definitely
we're trying to
understand
protect those folks who've made that investment in their properties. So that's why we're limiting some of these. And I have had feedback where people are not in favor of
Oh, I'm not questioning that, I
residential
just
areas.
haven't heard that.
And I
personally.
believe I spoke to somebody that did speak to you about not wanting short-term rentals. I can,
We'll discuss that later, because I don't think
Yeah.
we're talking there.
but anyhow, that's my
Okay, I'm just asking the
opinion.
question, so we know.
That's fine. 'Cause I think we'll get more information as well during the next public meeting.
Thank you.
Because it's totally different than what the first public meeting was. This actually you can understand this one.
This
Yes.
is vastly different than the original draft.
Oh, it totally
Yeah.
is, and
We
I
decided to
appreciate
throw it
It looks
all the
good.
work you're doing on this, I
Yeah,
really do, but I
you've
have, I
done
have
a
a
lot
lot
of work
of
on
questions.
it.
We're gonna, I don't know if we're gonna go over, I guess, I got 7 o'clock, but let's, what do we got, Deb? A couple more pages here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the initial application process is listed here and what the property owner needs to provide in terms of documentation. Then the operating requirements are here, including not parking on the street if you're in the residential area. There's also the condition in here that there has to be a designated person in charge as a contact person who's over the age of 21 and lives within 25 miles of the borough, so that there is a contact person at all times in case of an emergency or if the guest needs to contact somebody.
And then, there's, sort of related to the shed issue. It says, if there is more than one building on a lot or 2 or more contiguous lots that have been historically acquired together, and the second building was originally constructed for habitable space, then that one can also be used as a short-term rental.
Within the last 5 years.
Yeah. But you can't proactively say, I'm going to join these 2 properties together and immediately make that a short-term rental.
So we have the requirements, and then there is a violations and penalty section, which could potentially result in the revocation of the short-term rental permit.
And that, the language in the old one where people were saying that they're calling short-term rental property owners criminals is totally gone.
Will you go over the violations and penalties a little bit more?
Did you have a specific question?
I do, and I may have skimmed over this too quick. When there is a warning or a violation, does that has to come from the police department, is that correct?
Where you at?
Next to last.
C, on the bottom.
See, okay.
It says first offense, written warning, notice of violation sent via certified mail or hand delivered. Who determines the violation? Is that always a police?
No.
I say zoning, probably
could be
code.
Could be
zoning.
zoning, could be code.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I was thinking for myself that most of this would be noise related, those types of things with renters. And someone complains, I would assume that would have to be documented somehow.
It could be cars parked on the street,
Okay.
you know, whatever the
Those
case
kinds of
may
things.
be.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's the out at the very end is that if the property owner feels that, that the violation did not really occur or that it was too onerous, they can appeal to the zoning hearing board.
If it's a zoning matter, and if it's a police matter, they go to the district magistrate or whatever. If that's the type of, if these offenses are related to any,
As we were looking, I don't know, maybe we were wrong, and maybe this is another legal question, but we put in the zoning hearing board because the other communities that have this
Yeah.
send everything with violations to the zoning hearing board.
well, remember, I mean, I know you redid this, the old one had a point system and involved criminal activity. I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
mentioning that, because like suppose we get 2 or 3 disorderly conduct calls to a property, what do we do? Nothing, or?
Well, I think we discussed the, kind of the best interest of the property owner. They have a huge financial interest in the property, and everybody we talk to goes through a pretty strict vetting process before their guests arrive. They check people out. If they turn out to be a problem, they're not invited back. A number of the
And they-
property owners have regular guests who come every year or several times a year. So if there's criminal behavior, that's on the perpetrator, that's on the person
Okay. Thank you.
behaving badly.
Thank you.
If
Yeah.
it's a borough code, nuisance code thing like grass or trash or cars on the street, then it's a borough issue. So it isn't making the property owner responsible for the behavior of their guests.
Thank you, and I think in the previous
Yeah.
one, there was some
Right.
wording to that effect.
And
So-
rather than going to a point system, we have the first, second, and third offenses, which are graduated.
And if you look at the third
Thank you, that
offense,
makes it very clear.
if you look at the third offense, the fines increased to $1,000 in calendar year
/ permit cycle suspension of rental permit. If in the R1, R2 residential district, this suspension constitute a loss of the short-term rental as a non-conforming status.
So it really is in the best interest of the property owner to make sure everything is running smoothly, because they have the financial investment
Right,
there, and for them to continue, it has to work.
great, thank you very much.
Can I
And
go back
that's
and
it.
ask a question about the maximum number of days?
Mhm.
In your talking to the different short-term rental owners, does that affect anybody's business? Like, had anybody been above that number of days that it would
There's-
reduce their income?
One, who wants to do it 365 days.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's done that, but there are once, and there was, this person wanted this person wanted this, and that's, we did that.
Yeah, there's a wide range of business models and the types of short-term rentals that the property owners are doing, and it's from a few days a year to close to 75. And so we just kind of had to come up with a happy medium.
So there's gonna be at least one person then that's gonna have their income reduced because of the ordinance?
Potentially.
Potentially.
Well, no, because everybody's kind of following the same guidelines, I think, is I'm not sure what's on their permit, but I
If you wa- if
I
you
don't
want
think
a
anybody's
three-
gonna lose anything at this point.
If you want a 365, why don't you just make a long-term rental?
No, I'm just asking the question, and because.
Well, to be clear, they have a non-conforming use. As long as they're in compliance with that, there shouldn't be a problem. They have a permit and then the spacing of the rooms and all that's in compliance, it's not a non-conforming use, so they should not lose anything. Now, if they go to expand in a non-conforming status, there's ways,
And if-
language about expanding that.
And if they do the combo, short-term, long-term, then that becomes a non-issue.
Okay.
So-
The person that you're referring to, do they do any long-term rentals?
I think so.
One of them does, but I don't know if it's been in Bellefonte, but outside of
Yes.
Bellefonte where they own, they have done it, and it's possible it could occur here as well.
So this is, the way this is worded now, it's actually creating more options for the property owners with the option of doing a long-term rental and having guests stay for 6, 8 weeks, but not a long-term rental like a year's lease.
So I think moving this forward, this isn't on the agenda tonight. We're not talking about it after this meeting. Committee's meeting next Monday, and we can kind of dabble in this with Gina a little bit on some of the questions and discussion we've had tonight, and then come back, to maybe use it in another work session and talk about, maybe it's in the meeting that night to where we want to advertise as a public hearing, or put it out to the legal counsel and let them look at it before we do the
Yeah.
public meeting. So,
Yes.
I have one more question for you. The last list I saw from Gina, we had approximately 28 people that were listed as short-term rentals. Have they all been contacted about this?
Those are the ones that she knows are permanent.
Right, but have they all been contacted about working on the ordinance?
Don't they have representatives on the short-term rental committee?
I
They
don't.
had a committee for it.
Right, they have a
Yeah.
committee, but I don't know if they have reached out to everyone or not. But I didn't know, as a council, since we're discussing something that's very important to them, if we should at least reach out and say, hey, this is what's happening.
I think the main interest that we've gotten people are people who live in the residential areas and have a short-term rental. the people outside that area, I don't think have any issues that I'm aware of. I haven't had anybody come to a meeting for short-term rental and be outside a residential district.
Right,
Most of them
I
are
guess
from residential.
maybe I didn't word this right.
We have one that Gina says she believes is a renter subletting their apartment as a short-term rental.
Okay.
So if you look in this thing, and short-term rental people actually said, you need to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Right, but the whole list of 28, I
I
don't,
don't,
since we
can't
have all
talk
the,
to that. We'd have to ask Gina if they've all been contacted.
Well,
Okay.
we should do the same for the public then, if you're doing it for short-term rental owners.
well,
you might as well do
well,
it.
you're absolutely right.
We're gonna move on from this, because this is going all night.
Yes,
So
okay.
let's just.
Deb, thank you for
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Tonight's
That was
conversation
Yeah.
was much, much clearer than the last time.
Yes.
Thank you for all the work that you and everybody's put in. I think we're making great progress
You
on
bet.
this, so
You
thank
bet.
you.
Well, it really helped to talk to the groups individually
Sure.
and get different perspectives on what's going on, and we got a lot of very creative and helpful input.
Okay.
Barb, I thought that the short-term.
We're gonna move
rental-
on right
Well, I
now.
did-
Yeah, we're moving on right
Reach
now.
out to all of them and created this committee, as I understand.
They've all been, as far as I know, through their system, that have been notified. If they haven't, then that's on their system, not ours.
That was the impression I got also.
Okay, so we're gonna move into the SOR agreement. I don't know why we're looking at an agreement from 2015. And is that what we've been being paid for the last 5 years?
Hold on. Deb, do you recall, I mean, I think we were talking in a committee meeting at one time, and the idea came up about reviewing the SRO agreement.
Right.
Do you
to make sure.
recall?
Yeah, and, right, the copy that we have ended in 2016. so-
Well, it renews year to year, I think, after that, or at least in theory, but
Okay.
that's
because
what
I'm-
we've been following the same guidelines, the percent of payment from the school district, what they cover, that we're following the same guidelines.
Okay, I was looking for language that indicates some kind of automatic renewal or,
There's
Um,
nothing there.
and I didn't see anything there, and
I also don't see anything in there about increasing costs, because we have our police costs increase
Well,
each year.
It's a percentage, they pay a percentage of all the costs, so if our costs go up, they pay 75% of those costs, so that's covered.
Okay,
I agree, you probably could use a paragraph or a sentence about renewal, but we've been following the same program since it started.
did this start in 2014?
No, it started like in 2008. The first
Okay.
agreement was one SRO, and then around 2014, the school district received some grant funding to do a second SRO, so that was really the impetus for starting a second agreement, or an updated agreement. And the agreement at 2014 speaks to what this second SRO would do, where they would be stationed. It's a different format.
so let me ask you this, because when I was reading, I was a bit confused. Is this agreement only on the second SRO? And we still using the other one for the first SRO?
Pretty much, but I
It
mean,
probably should be combined.
well, they weren't combined way
Yeah.
back when, and that was maybe just the way things were done. But it was reviewed by our solicitor at the time, which I don't remember who that was. Both agreements were, it was really about how to split the cost of the officer, and that hasn't changed since the beginning of the first agreement.
Are there 2 SROs or 3?
There's 2 SROs. There's 2.
For some reason, I thought there was 3 for some.
No, from time to time, the particular SRO has been switched out to another SRO, but there's only been 2 officers that have been financed as part of the program.
Is the other agreement for the original one SRO basically the same language as
It's
this?
basically the same. It talked maybe a little bit more about the splitting of the costs. The second agreement was, which I thought was maybe, was obviously newer, but might help a little bit because it was newer, involved this grant money that the school was getting. They needed to use it, and so that
But
was
that's
it.
no longer applicable.
No, it's over, but that was why the agreement came to be.
It might be beneficial to have one SRO
Overall agreement.
that combined regardless of the number of officers. And there is language in here about terminating, either party can terminate with a 30 days notice, but there's nothing about an automatic renewal.
Yeah,
And
we could clarify that. We
Okay.
have our solicitor, you know, I've talked to the school district about just having one agreement for both SROs. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't be open to that.
My educated guess is, in lieu of recent events throughout the country, that we are going to see a push for more SROs within our buildings, so it might be a great idea to have a contract, whether it's 2 or whether it's 5.
Well, you know, it's based on the amount of staffing we have. And that might have been one of the questions that led to this. We were learning that, you know, the chief is pulling SROs out of the school district from time to time. And when that happens, we're not, it's on us. So I
That
think I
was
remember
my-
during budget season, there were some discussions, but, you know, there's options, Mayor, as far as how to cover. But
Absolutely.
we may not have 5 people during the day. is the
I
problem.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I missed it, but what do other school districts throughout the state, are they in conjunction with their local police, or that's something that we could look into also?
I don't have the statistics, but I'm sure they're out there. Some school districts have their own police department. I know Keystone School District used to, I don't know if
Okay.
they still do.
Well, we know Kent is a retired police officer and works for Moshannon as an
Yeah.
independent
Yeah.
SRO,
Yeah,
so I
so-
mean, I think the gamut is, varied.
Yes.
I just think that's something to look into, just for the benefit of the community as well as the school district, because it's of utmost importance, and I wish it wasn't, but it is.
It is important, you know,
Absolutely.
after some of the recent events, you know,
Right.
where there's some questions about our officers covering the extracurricular games and so forth. Again, it's based on a request from the school district and then the amount of resources we have at that point in time.
And I do know, as far as training goes, as an educator, I know that the training within the Bellefonte Area School District is incredible. It's in my eyes second to none. And Reed, I don't know if you can
Yeah.
vouch for that. The SROs and the officers that we have work very, very well with our school district to keep our kids and our teachers and everybody within those buildings safe.
Excellent.
So it's very, very good, so.
Yeah, and I think when we put this on the agenda, it was to basically review questions that we need to get back to Chief Weaver on and,
Yes.
you know, see what his feelings are. And maybe he knows, I'm sure he knows more about it than we do
Yes,
because we're not
yes.
involved in it.
Yeah.
So where is he this evening?
He's away.
Throw away.
Yeah. So,
His son just graduated and.
So, we've got a couple more minutes left. We'll talk about the junior council member program guidelines. I know they came out, I printed them off and we're sitting at home.
Well,
So Reed, I'm moving on. Do you have yours copy or did you bring out one?
What Ralph sent out?
I think we wanted to see what you maybe heard back from the school
Oh, okay.
district.
Well, unfortunately, it was kind of a bad time of the year to ask that question.
Okay.
I did talk to our superintendent, and she said that they have tried several times in the past years to get the program up and running again. And she had asked the question about whether a junior council member needed to be a borough member because that makes it a little more difficult to get an interested student who meets the criteria. And she thought that maybe it was dropped pre-pandemic. I don't know if that's correct.
It hasn't
Okay.
been on, I know it
That's
hasn't been
been-
on since 2015. is
Yeah.
what the-
Well, I mean, the criteria for being a borough resident, she thought that might have been dropped.
That was dropped.
It was drawn
Yeah.
Yeah.
by PSAB.
Well, by us, too, I think
By us.
the borough said.
In the guidelines, though, that used to be you had to be a borough
Preferred.
resident, now
Yeah.
it's preferred.
Yeah.
No, it's just a school. But they also, the thing that you sent said it could also be a college student.
That's what the Boroughs Association guidelines say, either high school or college.
So if it was a college student, how would that relate to what Rita's doing with the school district?
Well, let's see if we can get
Well,
a student from the high
I'd
school
say one or
first,
the other.
and then broaden our reach. And preferably, in my opinion, it would be a Bellefonte resident, but I understand that's limited. So I would, my first choice would be a Bellefonte resident, and then from there, go out beyond that. I know it's difficult to find somebody willing to take the time to mentor
Well,
that
and
person.
what she said too is that pre-pandemic, there weren't many interested or available students, and when she said available, she said that in quotes, because the students who were interested were involved in so many
Yeah.
school
Yes.
activities and outside school activities, they
Right.
just didn't have time.
That's right.
So she's perfectly willing for us to give this a shot again. She suggested I talk to Mr. Fitzgerald, which that was my next route, but he coordinates graduation, so I sent him an email and I never heard from him. Basically, I'm sure because he had his head in that. So I'm thinking it'll probably have to wait until school starts again before I get any feedback from him.
My son will
So,
be a junior, he can be a junior council, junior mayor. You guys might have to
Sounds
slide
like
down
a little
seat,
nepotism,
get
doesn't
squeezed in there.
You can join junior council.
We'll take it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I noticed in that thing that said that you needed a resolution.
Yes.
Do we need to redo a resolution?
We can pull the one we did previously and see if there's any date or anything. We can certainly put one in front of you, and it sounds like we have a month or two to do that, so
Okay.
we can look at that.
Okay.
that's pretty much all I have. I don't have any more information at this time, so, but answering my question about whether it had to be a borough resident or not, I guess that's up to us, right?
Yes.
Whether-
But that's the priority, though,
Yes.
to get that Bellefonte person first before we go
So
outside.
if you get two
And-
people, one's Bellefonte, one's not, and they're both equally qualified, we want Bellefonte one.
If your son's interested.
So if you got the information from Ralph, you can send that to, who was the principal you need to send it to? or-
Well, I was speaking with the
Fitzgerald?
superintendent, but she suggested that I work with Mr. Fitzgerald, who is the social studies chair at the high school and works with a lot of the government-related classes and extracurricular
Maybe
things
send
that they
him that
do.
information that Ralph sent out to,
Yeah.
so he has it. If he doesn't, maybe he does.
We could see if we have some people, and then maybe do the resolution at that time, knowing that we got some people we're gonna have on board.
Okay.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
1 minute left.
Nothing else, we'll take, end this work session at 7:22. We'll be back at 7:30.
Wait, get out of here. Ready to go?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bellefonte Council meeting for June 21st. Council chambers is open to the public with normal or standard occupancy levels. Face covering or masks are optional. Masks are available at the sign-in desk. If you're feeling ill, please join the meeting virtually. It's too late if you're here already. You can view the live feed and recordings of the work sessions and Borough Council meetings. You can view it on YouTube, or you can also see it on CNET 1. And you can also watch it on TV on CNET, Comcast Government Education Channel 7. If you want to attend virtually, you please contact the Borough via email or by phone before 4 p.m. on Tuesday, January 21st, which is today, but any meeting that we're having on our normal Mondays before 4 o'clock, and you'll be able to get a link to join that meeting on your computer. So we'll welcome everybody to the Bellefonte Borough Council meeting. We'll do our best to start the council meeting on time as well as end on time. Due to the room acoustics, please speak up when talking so that people can hear you. And I'm talking to the council here when we're speaking. All comments and reports should be kept to a 3-minute maximum. So I appreciate you assisting us with that. At this time, we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Bernier is excused. Mr. Brackville.
Here.
Ms. Cleaton.
Here.
Ms. Dan.
Here?
Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Ms. McKean.
Here.
Ms. Purnell.
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick is excused. Ms. Tosti Vasey.
I'm here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Okay, do we have any additions to the council meeting? I'll bring that up in accordance with Act 65 of 2021. If a matter is not in the agenda, council cannot take official action on it with some exceptions. Council can act on matters related to potential or real emergencies. Council may add a matter of agency business to its agenda through a majority vote. Council should state the reason why the action item is being added to the agenda, and then council would vote to add that item.
There is one item, Mr. President. It's a request from Phillipsburg Heritage Days for fire police assistance for their event on July 16th, because it just came in and because our next meeting is right up pretty close to that date. We are asking that it be added to the agenda for this evening.
So I'll call for a motion to add the Phillipsburg Heritage Days Parade to be held Saturday, July 16, 2022 at 2 p.m., requesting assistance for traffic control during the parade. I have that motion.
I'll make that motion for now.
I'll second it, Clete.
Motion by Purnell, second by Cleaton. Any further discussion on this topic?
Just one. Typically, when we use the fire police, we let Sean Weaver know so he can contact them. But the final decision isn't made by us. It is made totally by the fire police.
That's,
So should this be, my question is, should this be conditional upon their approval?
right, the motion is to add it to the agenda.
Oh,
Then
okay.
later.
Then my
You're
comment.
ahead of yourself again.
Okay.
We all know, though.
Getting as bad as I am.
And we have it.
Okay. Got that cleared up. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor to add this item to the agenda on the Phillipsburg Heritage Days Parade request, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So I'll make that motion to conditionally approve the fire police with their final approval.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so I have it as a motion to conditionally approve based on fire police approval. That's correct? Okay, any discussion?
I want to mention, it was made by Joanne Tosti-Vasey and Doug Johnson seconded it.
Thank you.
I was too busy writing the motion.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's all right.
We have a new minute taker.
Okay, any discussion? Any more? Lack of?
Already done.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Further communications. We have, under public comments, we have Bobby and Doug Barnett here for comments in a petition regarding Parkview Boulevard and Zion Road intersection. Which one, who wants to come up? Okay, so Bobby, you have 3 minutes, and I'll let you know that in our packets for this meeting, the email that Doug sent a few months ago, I guess, a few weeks ago, was all included in that, from the start of that to where we are tonight.
Okay, all right. And so, hi, everybody. I'm Bobby Barnett, and I live on Woodland Drive in Bellefonte. And I want to thank you guys for putting us on the agenda. On April 4th, we did speak to the council about the dangerous intersection of South Parkview Boulevard and Zion Road, and Charles Dolan also spoke too. And as I had said then, that there's the 6 lanes of traffic coming into this intersection, and it's the only one in Bellefonte that has 6 lanes of traffic coming into the intersection without a traffic light. It has a stop sign on there. So many people are avoiding this intersection because they don't feel safe. Okay, and so we don't use it, so it shunts more traffic to the High and School Street where the kids are crossing, and I think that's pretty dangerous to put that traffic in there. From this intersection, there's a high school, a middle school. Within the last 2 blocks, there's more people, there's more children, or like the high school kids driving because of COVID. More parents taking their children with COVID, using this area. 80 and I-99 exits are filter into this area. There's also several other businesses, the Mount Nittany Medical Center, Geisinger, Rite Aid, JRS Landscaping, Northwest M&T Bank. They're very close to this intersection. However, now there's 2 more businesses that are going to be coming, Comfort Jewelry and CO2 Boutique, okay, that are moving into the immediate area. Also, on May 2nd, Bellefonte Borough announced that the sale of the Armory property to Cuz Holdings LLC of State College for $950,000. The purchaser planned to transform the property into brewery, distillery, tasting room, dining, destination bar, and possibly an outdoor area for live bands to perform. This is very concerning as it would add more traffic to this intersection, adding alcohol to the mix of the dangerous area here. Okay, so that's very scary. Since April's meeting, Doug and I, with the help of our neighbors, who were eager to help in this, went on a door-to-door petition asking for signatures from our neighbors if there was an interest in obtaining a traffic light to be installed in our neighborhood intersection. We obtained 205 signatures that I'm going to present with you guys of Bellefonte residents that reside in the immediate area. We tried to stay with that immediate area because we're the ones that are, have to deal with this. We're afraid with the upcoming increased traffic from these new businesses will certainly add more chance of accidents and or death at this intersection. On April, you placed this issue on a goals list so you could follow it and monitor it. With these new information about increasing traffic to the area, I hope that you have there's more light to revisit this request, and I'm asking you to move the traffic light discussion up on these goals. I guess that's all I have to say, and I'll present these petitions for you guys. So, and I didn't know if anything else is going to be done, and I guess I'll be back in a couple months to see what's being done. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, communications, we have Bellefonte Arts and Crafts Fair letter from,
Basically,
April,
yeah, I'm just gonna summarize what's on the agenda. They have their event, which they're scheduling for August 5th and 6th in the downtown. They need a number of street closures as typical for this event. The street closures and the time of day is on our agenda here for your review. We're asking, there's actually two motions, one to approve the event, and then the second motion to approve the street closures.
okay, so, first off, I'll call for a motion to approve the Bellefonte Arts and Crafts Fair for August 5th. That's right, 5th and 6th. And it starts at 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, August 6th, and
I believe it's
I don't-
Friday.
No,
and
Friday is
Saturday.
August 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Friday, August 5th from 10 to 8.
yeah, I was missing that. I see the 10-day, I don't see the Friday, that's
Yes,
throwing me
it's
off.
missing.
Okay, so Friday at 10 to 8 p.m. and Saturday from 9 to 6. We have a motion.
I'll make that motion, Clayton.
A motion by Clayton. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Dan.
Second, Dan. Okay, discussions. I have a couple questions on this. I don't know, I seem to remember that this came up earlier in the year, but do we have I know they're sending out for PennDOT based on the letter, but what about insurance, things like that?
We'll do, if you approve it, we'll make sure all that's submitted.
So we could do that as a
The
conditional?
Yeah, the typical insurance requirements, PennDOT approval, all that, we'll actually meet with the people, make sure all that's in place. But I know they're working on it.
So, to make everything copacetic, I would like to amend that to make it conditional upon all of the liability issue clearances.
So the amendment. Toasty Vasey, is there a second?
I'll second McKean.
By McKean to make this a conditional upon receiving all the information.
Right.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the conditional approval to approve the dates and times of the Bellefonte Arts and Crafts Fair for August 5th and 6th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, same motion, or same side? Seeing none, motion approved.
That was just amendment. Now
That was
you
the-
have to
I'm
do
sorry,
the
the
whole-
amendment, the amendment. The amendment was approved. Okay, so that takes us back to the main motion now, which is, the motion will be to approve the Bellefonte Arts and Crafts Fair for Friday, August 5th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday from August 6th from 9 a.m. to p.m. to, on conditional to recording other information needed. So, any discussion on that? Or- Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the main motion has carried. And the second motion is to approve the following streets closures from North and South Allegheny, Bishop Street to Lynn Street intersection, and West High Street, Allegheny Street to Spring Street intersection from Thursday, August 4th at 6 p.m. to Saturday, August 6th at 8 p.m. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion conditional on the previous motion's conditions being met.
I'll second it, I get it, yeah.
Okay, second by Doug Johnson. Motion made by Toasty Vasey. Any discussion?
I have some discussion. I guess when we are approving this, that means that the Arts Festival is being requested to be in the downtown.
Yes.
Okay. I'm always been supportive of having it in the park
where I think it belongs. We have a beautiful park. I understand the merchants in town want business, but if you build it, they will come. So, and I know, I've heard that the vendors, it's easier for them on the streets. I disagree with that. I think they can drive into the figure eight, park their van behind their booth, set up, and actually, I think it's probably a little more secure there. But I do understand inclement weather could cause a problem, but you know what? You take the chance, because every other arts festival does that. I just think the environment of our park is much more appealing than walking the streets on the sidewalk or on the road. And we don't have any concerns about emergency vehicles getting through town. So I'm not gonna vote in support of this, because I would rather see the arts crafts fair be in the park.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the request for street closures, North and South Allegheny Street, Bishop Street to Lynn Street intersection, and West High Street, Allegheny Street to Spring Street intersection, from Thursday, August 4th at 6 p.m. to Saturday, August 6th at 8 p.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries with one nay. And that's all we have for communications. So, moving on to consent agenda. We'll call for a motion to approve the items listed on the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion, Clayton.
Motion by Clayton, do I have a second?
Second McKean.
I'd like to remove two of them. One is to correct the minutes, and the other is to ask a question on the summary budget thing. I don't know what it's called.
The voucher summary of May, the bottom one?
No,
The budget to
The actual summary of the item 4?
the budget versus actual summary.
Okay.
May 2022 budget versus actual summary.
Okay, so we pulled that in the minutes of June 6th. Okay, so other than approving on the consent agenda, we'll be approving the Stover McLaughlin invoice, the budget versus actual May 2022, the treasurer's report, and the voucher summary of May 2022. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, so motion carries. And Joanne, if you want to go into your questions?
Okay, since the minutes are at the top of this list, all of my changes are on page 4. There are several minor grammatical changes, adding or subtracting commas, capitalization corrections, and adding some missing articles. I'll just give those to Don and he can fix them. There are 3, however, 1 correction and 2 clarifications. The very first sentence on that page should change February 2022 to the end of November 2022. Because right now it's saying that we was tabled to something 3 months ago.
So this is on the top page?
Yeah, it says Tosti Vasey motion to table this item until, it said the end, till February 2022. And what I said was the end of November 2022. The other 2 are just clarifications. On the 3rd paragraph under public comment, it should say, it says Bellefonte Victorian Christmas with HBI and DBI had a communication issue between the two organizations. And Johnson wanted to make sure that the issue was resolved. I think it would just be clear if we just added, it has been, at the end of that paragraph. And then the last one is the second sentence in the last paragraph of public comments. I need to add until construction starts after mows the grass on that property, so that that full sentence would read, there was an arrangement made with the property owners that if the borough mows the grass on that property until construction starts, the property may be open to the public to use as an extra open green space. Can I pass it down?
So, babe, what did you change there?
She had.
I added until construction starts. Just before the, after grass on that property.
Yeah, I don't know if all that was stated at the meeting or not when we talked about that and how that was left. Because the way we're doing the minutes now, we're kind of reduced the number and don't get into some of the particulars maybe as much as we should where we need to, but not where we don't need to.
But I think for
that'll correct
perpetuity,
it.
it needs to be clear that we're not saying that we're perpetually allowing them to use the property.
Well, common sense tells you that we won't.
When the buildings are built. Okay, so that takes care of the minutes. And then you had,
Oh, and then the second
Summary.
one, so second was the budget versus actual summary, is just a question. How is it possible to have percentages in the percentage of the prior year column if there are absolutely no values shown in the actual 2021 column? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know if it was missed. I mean, that would be a Lori question.
Yeah, we can check with Lori. She might have combined a column, I'm not sure.
I don't know, there's one column that said prior year actual numbers, and then it went through the current year, and then it had the percentage of current year, and then it had this percentage of the prior year, and it had percentages there, but that first column was absolutely blank with a 0 down at the bottom. Doesn't make sense.
Can you give us the, the actual line item name
It's
with the?
all of them, the
I can
entire
see it, I
column.
see it right here, it's right
All
here.
right, okay, I got you.
My guess is she probably just pulled it
Yes,
off the
okay.
percentage
That's
from
probably-
last
yes,
year's,
you're
but
probably
we'll
right.
double check with Lori.
Okay, so now I'll call for a motion to approve the council minute meetings of June 6th and the budget versus actual summary from May 22nd, and that could be conditionally till we get the information. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it, Clayton.
Motion by Dan. Ms. Dan, so keep this people correct. Second by Ms. Clayton. Discussion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the council minute of June 6th and the voucher of the budget versus factual summary for May 2022 conditionally approved, signify by saying aye.
Yeah, but how could you get the percentages if you don't have the
Second.
numbers?
Sorry.
Motion to pass, say aye.
Side.
Let's stay with it, folks.
Joanne's
Those
distracting
against?
me.
Motion carries.
Can we do the original
Yeah.
consent motion?
Do you guys need dividers between you?
Yeah, we already did that one, Ralph, it was,
Devin, sure.
yeah.
Devin and King. Okay. Almost had to get my gavel. All right, moving into reports. This way. The mayor will be up for his report, and I guess you're also giving Chief Weaver's reports a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, all's yours.
Our police force continues to make a positive impact on the community. They continue to be visible, doing more foot patrol. One thing that Chief Weaver noted while on foot patrol this past month, night officers have found 6 buildings that have been left unlocked. Although officers often notice them before the thief does, please double check your buildings before leaving for the night. Also, please make sure that the police department has your contact information on file. This is in case that your response is necessary to secure your property during non-business hours. If there are any further questions about the chief's report, I can do my best to answer them, or we can make sure we email him and get you an answer as soon as possible. As far as my mayor's report, I just want to say I've been out recently. I went to the Bellefonte Children's Fair and to the Bellefonte Cruise over the past weekend, and I'm just real proud to be part of this community and part of this council. And we live in a great community with a lot of really good events for our community members. So it's really nice to see.
Mayor, may I mention something under your parking enforcement while we got a chance?
Please do.
I wanted to mention to council while we're on this, our parking enforcement officer, Scott Whitehill, accepted a position down at the wastewater treatment plant. Scott was part-time, did a great job as a parking enforcement officer. So he's now working down there, and we've opened the vacancy announcement, went out today for a part-time parking enforcement officer. So get the word out for anyone that's interested in a part-time position, or who will be looking for people.
I just mentioned we still have Gabby, who is the other part-time, or the other parking attendant administrator, so she'll be helping, cover some of Scott's time. It's not like we're without, but we still would like to get somebody back in a part-time position.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to Office of Community Affairs. Ralph, you handling this?
I can,
These items?
sure.
So what I want to start with is, we can group some of these together, but I need to pull 106 and 114 North Allegheny, as I have to abstain from voting on that. So we can't do them all together, but we can maybe do the other ones together once Ralph goes through them.
Yeah, let me run down. It's 407 West High Street was a demolition of an existing structure and construction of a new gateway structure to match Von Fatto's. This was recommended for approval by the HARB. The one that Randy just talked about is 106 114 North Allegheny Street. He would like to do this, I believe, separately because you're going to abstain, so
And
I'll skip that
this
one.
next one we're going to table.
Well-
I'm going to ask for a table.
No, that's 214.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm up
Yeah,
above you.
214 we're going to table, but 128 West Howard Street, the Trinity Church. This is a retroactive approval for replacement of 3 deteriorated brownstone sills on the Howard Street side of the building. Again, this went through HARB in a retroactive fashion, and they're getting formal approval now. I think we would ask for action on those 2 items together, and then we'll do the other 2 items separately. You
Sounds
want
good.
to handle those?
Yep. So let's start with 214 North Allegheny Street. This project was discussed at the recent HARB meeting, and there were 2 processes put forward, one by the owner, one by HARB. And it's a bed and breakfast next to the library. Mr. Breidenballs?
Yes.
And he had sent me an email, and I forwarded it to Ralph, suggesting that we table it because he wants to be able to come to council and discuss it a little bit further. He would like to further his original plan forward over what HARB has done. There was discussions on who owns the sidewalk and how far is their reach past that sidewalk. So the walkway he's trying to fix and the stoop in front of his house kind of got quagmired up a little bit. And so anyway, that's the purpose for the table. So if I could have a motion to table 214 Allegheny Street, Bellefonte Bed and Breakfast.
To a specific time?
Be the next meeting, first meeting in July. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Toasty Vasey, second
I'll second that, Dan.
by Dan, seconds. Okay, any other questions or discussion about that? Seeing none, all those in favor to table the 214 North Allegheny Bellefonte BMB to July 5th meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And so we'll
Could
do,
we do each of these separately, because I have a question on one of them.
I was going to do 407 and 128 together.
I'd like to split them because I have a question on 407.
Okay, then let's do 407 West High Street, demolition of existing structure of construction of new gateway structure to the
I'll
to
make the
match
motion.
Belfados.
I'll make the motion for 407 West High Street.
Motion by Johnson, Doug Johnson, second.
I'll second it.
Barb first. Dan, second. Discussion?
The question I have is, this says demolition of existing structure and construction of the new gateway structure to match Bonfados. Was the motion by Harb just for the demolition part, and are they coming back to Harb for the construction? Did they have the design? I could not tell that from the reports.
I wasn't in the meeting. All I saw was the photographs that showed a very attractive gate. So I assume that was reviewed and approved as
Randy, were
a
you there?
recommendation.
I attended the meeting and I'm looking at this, the way it's written is it's for the demolition of existing structure and construction of a new gateway structure. And that's that entry in.
So
there'll
they
be-
presented, so what I'm asking, did they present the materials and the
Yes.
designs and
Yes.
everything at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I
Sure.
knew what I was voting on.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that's for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving 407 West High Street, the demolition of the existing structure, the construction of a new gateway structure to match Bonfados, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 128 West Howard Street, Trinity Church, retroactive approval for replacement of 3 deteriorated brownstone sills on Howard Street side. So what they did there was they used a different material than they were supposed to on those windowsills that they replaced on the underneath the windows in the section they worked on. And so they basically got a retroactive approval in that replacement to allow those to stay as they are without changing them out again. Any discussion on that?
I'll make the motion to approve 128 West Howard Street.
Motion by Doug Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Dan.
Second by Dan. Any other discussion on that one?
Have you looked at it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. They did a really nice job, and they did what they needed to do, and they tried to get the original stuff. It's almost impossible, but they copied it as best they could. So I looked at it, and it looks great.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor to approve the 128 West Howard Street Trinity Church retroactive approval for replacement of 3 deteriorated brownstone sills on Howard Street side, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And the next one is 106, 114 North Allegheny Street demolition and renovation project. I am abstaining as I'm involved in that project. Do I have a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion to approve 106, 114 North Allegheny Street demolition and renovation project.
there a second?
I'll second it, Dan.
Or Dan second, Doug Johnson made the motion. Any other discussion on this? And this is basically a demolition of a small garage and storeroom behind the building. Okay.
Again, just one question, this is, when you say the renovation project, this isn't the final designs, it's just
Just a demo.
demolition at this point, and they're coming back for the final design.
Right, yeah, they need to do the demo so they have staging area for materials and equipment. Okay, and if there's no other questions, all those in favor to approve 106, 114 North Allegheny Street demolition and renovation project signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Okay, that goes, there were no nuisance codes that I saw in
That's
the
correct.
report.
Yeah.
So that takes us into the borough manager report, which he has added to the packet. If there's any questions there? So we had reports in from borough manager. Do you want to speak on them at all?
Just
Okay.
only if there's a question.
Okay. So we have the Bellefonte Area Industrial Development Authority. We have the Bellefonte Environmental Advisory Review Board, the Pennsylvania Municipal League, Union Cemetery Association, Bellefonte Borough Authority, Center County Airport Authority, Center County Library Board, Talleyrand Park Committee, Workplace Safety Committee. And those are the reports that were put in the
So I
packet.
have a question on the workplace safety.
Okay.
Should we be adopting policies for the vehicle take-home, seatbelt use, and non-business related transports to our goals and tasks list as requested by the motion at the June 8th Workplace Safety Committee meeting?
Is that on the agenda?
It's on the agenda.
It is.
On new
Yeah,
business.
on the new business.
Okay,
So you're ahead of the game.
okay.
Joanne, I'm disappointed.
I was up
That's
at
right.
2 o'clock this morning doing this, so I ain't so bad.
One more you gotta go,
Okay.
Let me see where I'm at here.
Been out of town.
There we go. Gotta get into the right business mode here. Okay. Next item is current and old business. We have an update on current projects. There's there's no action to be taken under old business because there is none. So we'll go to new business. We have the municipal bid auction items list. I have a motion and second to approve the adding the list items to the municipal bid for auction.
I'll make that motion for now.
Motion by Purnell,
Seconded, Clayton.
second by Clayton.
I was going to mention, the list was put together by our Public Works Department. They do have the delineators on the list. We were talking just today, we might want to keep some of those in case we put like a pedestrian divider. I know there's two places in town near the Bellefonte Walk come to mind, on Cherry Lane, and then by Bonfato's on Potter Street, as maybe just a little bit of a divider. So we'll probably will take those off the list and look at possibly reusing or something. It'd be nice to have a better material, but a nicer looking, but that is their purpose, to be a divider. But I think for now, we're gonna take them off the list.
So are you saying take the entire delineator list?
It's
All the
like
items,
just
that one line?
Yeah, just that one line.
So we're keeping everything on that?
Yeah, for
Okay.
now, until we
That's what I'm
decide,
asking.
yeah.
Good idea.
Just
Yeah.
in case.
Any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the municipal bid auction items as listed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is solar exploration for borough, for the borough memo. There's no action requested. Ralph, you have something you want to bring up?
We were talking about it off and on as a borough, and the airport was talking about it. It's the same folks that did the Center County Prison installation, the one at UAJA and the one over at Millheim. So it doesn't cost anything to have them look at our facilities and our power usage and where they could locate a solar system. Unfortunately, I think we all would say Mustard Lane would be the best location, but it's outside what they call a 2-mile virtual metering radius, outside where it should be to really take advantage of this metering system they have. I'll just say there's only really 2 possibilities, and both are not really good. One's the Undine property that's currently not used, but it's owned by the Undines up off of Crawford and Blanchard and all of that. And the other one is the back end near the soccer field, the far soccer field out in Governor's Park. There's a little strip of land that we have that's not utilized, but some of the diagram that is indicated in the email that I received, they'd have to take like a portion of the trees that are out there, which I don't think we want to do. But I wanted you to know we were exploring it and looking at opportunities. Right now, as far as having our own location, we don't have that ideal setting just yet, but we're still looking.
What's the minimum acreage that needed to make a feasible project?
Well, that's a good question. They told me about how much an acreage produces. I don't have those on top of my mind, but it would have to be fairly significant to put a dent in the amount of electricity we use. Our big users are the water pump houses and the wastewater treatment plant, and they use a tremendous amount of electricity. So
We had seen a proposal, I think last year, that had an array set up on the Undine property in that
Yes.
cleared area.
yeah.
Would that, or an array that size, make enough of a dent in the pump house usage
Well,
or the
they
reservoir building? to make a
actually
difference?
wanted 2 about that size, one at the Undines and one by Governor's Park, to make a decent dent in the amount of electricity. So they wanted 2, so about 2 times the size of the Undine size is what we would need.
And there just isn't that size property available.
No.
So, I attended the PML Sustainability Program today. And one of the presentations was talking about certifications under the Sustainable Pennsylvania. One of the things they've mentioned that I've heard about before, I think might be able to help us here, and it's called the Soul Smart Program. It's a national program led by the International City County Management Association and the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, funded by the U.S. Department of Energy. They provide no-cost technical assistance from a team of national experts who work to evaluate programs and practices that impact solar markets and identify high prospect opportunities for improvement. They also do a select number of communities with what they call Soul Smart Advisors. They will actually be fully funded, experienced staff who work in our community for periods up to 6 months to help us figure this problem out.
We can look at them, but I mean, the same consultants, or this, like I said, did 3 or 4 in the area. This is what they do every day. It's just a matter of looking at an aerial map around us.
Yeah. But in this case, they're not actually a company that's providing the service. They are an advisor, a
Okay.
technical
All
thing,
right.
which would give you I personally think give you a better feeling of
I'm
Well, we
happy
can do.
happy to touch base with them.
I think-
ICMA is an excellent organization. so-
I think just as important, and maybe even more important,
Yeah.
would be to lobby somebody to expand the 2-mile
Yes, that-
restriction.
that would be
If we
ideal.
could get 3 miles, we
Or
could put the solar
4,
array out
take
on
4.
Mustard Lane. So,
3.3, I think.
well, as Mr. Stewart stated, we're working on this at the airport. We've gathered a lot of information on this, and we're pleased with what we've seen so far. But for the borough right now, the restriction is the radius to put our collector field out there. So we may be in touch with legislatures or whoever makes that rule,
Yeah.
and hopefully get that expanded where we could put our panel out there. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a matter of the technology, we just don't have the space
No,
Right.
right.
to put the collector field.
The other thing, talking about regulations, is we need to go back to our solar ordinance and fix the ground array thing, because right now, we couldn't do that at all, nor could anybody else, because the way we wrote it is, it's
Well,
a,
we can deal with that
Yeah,
after we
we're
get the
getting into
radius.
the weeds a
We,
little bit.
we
now.
put that on the,
that's on the
work
goal,
goals.
that's what I'm
okay,
saying.
okay.
Good.
Well, I didn't want to go more than my 3 minutes, but,
I do have a question.
Okay, sure.
Does it have to be on the ground, or can you use rooftop?
you can use rooftop, it just, you don't have that economy of scale. Like, if we were to put them up here in the building, it would be okay, but, you know, and it costs more, and the financing that's involved isn't as attractive. I mean, it's just the amount of tax, or the credits that are available are low for Pennsylvania, so the more cost you have in the system, the margins are even tighter, so that's the problem.
Okay, we'll move on. Next item is commercial insurance. RFP is due on Tuesday, July 5th at 12 p.m. noon. There's no council action needed on this. You have any updates on
Not
this?
tonight. Yeah, I mentioned the last meeting, we were going out for proposals. It's been a while since we've done that. Our plan is Tuesday, open up any proposals received, look at the numbers, put a tally sheet together, put any recommendations together, and have them at the table for the meeting on July 5th. We'll have a note on the agenda about that, but our goal is our normal period for renewal starts August 1st, so we would like to get everything approved and in place on July 5th, and then start if there is any change in carrier or what have you, we would have enough time to do that.
Curiosity, what kinds of commercial insurance are we talking about?
Well, we have broad categories of coverage. It says commercial, but it's everything we have: general liability, officer liability, errors and omissions insurance. They call it inland marine for our backhoe equipment, all that stuff. Any kind of pocket workers' comp liability, any kind of coverage that we would need as a municipality, that's what we are going out for.
Okay. Moving along, CDBG project selection. I need a motion and a second to approve an option that we talked about at the work session, or one of the two options that we talked about.
I'll do the suspension bridge with if at all possible, with the same flooring that we have on the flat pedestrian bridge.
Okay, so we have a motion to support the suspension bridge with GDBG money, and with using the same floor material as the current pedestrian bridge.
And that would be a barrier removal as well.
Yes, with
Barrier
barrier,
removal to add
ADA accessibility.
ADA accessibility. That's the motion. I have a motion.
I'll second it.
I need
Oh, I thought she did make.
Yeah,
the motion.
Joanne.
Joanne made the motion.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay.
So, motion by Toasty Basie, second by Mardan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to add the CDBG money to the suspension bridge improvements, changing the walkway to match what's on the current pedestrian bridge, the barrier And then also barrier removal, include adding ADA accessibility to the bridge. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Next item will be the Workplace Safety Committee recommendations to council. Consider adopting policies regarding vehicle take-home, seat belt use, and non-business related transports. So I'll take a motion and a second to have the staff draft up these policies for council consideration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Clayton.
Clayton, motion, second.
I'll second it.
Second, Posty Basie. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to have staff draft these policies for council for considering adopting the policies regarding vehicle take-home, seat belt use, and non-business related transports, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. The next item is to consider goals for the 7-5 council work sessions. Anybody have anything in mind? If not, you can email it to me anytime. And if we don't have any,
Do we want to do the short-term rentals?
we can add them on there.
Because we should have, hopefully next week, we should be able to finalize everything.
Yeah, and I think, we'll determine what the time is. I'm thinking maybe 20 minutes for that. Hopefully we're narrowing this thing down. Anybody else have anything they'd give consideration to?
Is this public comment?
No, this is
No.
still short term. Okay, seeing none, we'll take care of adding on as we move forward. Now we're into public comment regarding items not on the agenda. So this comment period is normally reserved for comments not listed on the meeting agenda. So please, when you come up, state your name and address. But if you haven't done that, I didn't announce that earlier, but if you signed in, we know you were here. So, anyway, please state your name and address and the issue you want to speak about, and limit the comments to 3 minutes. Anybody have any public comments? Mr. Jones?
Am I allowed to say it from here?
Yeah.
I just want to, Ms. Dan brought up a suggestion earlier in council of making sure, I want the public to know how much a committee has been working on the short-term rental agreements or ordinance. And we want everybody to know who is interested, either for, against, or a short-term rental owner, that this process is going on. So now is the time to come in and make comments for or against, so we as council folks can make the right decision for our borough residents. Just, I don't know if there's any other way than stating this publicly in our meetings to get the word out to everybody in the borough. So I just wanted to try to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
But and also I appreciate all the work that this committee has been doing, working with these folks. It's a really tough job. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other?
I think to follow up on, just so that everyone knows, the committee is made up of Randy, Shauna, Deb, and myself. So if you have anybody to blame, it's us.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, before we adjourn, I'll let everybody know that we're going to be moving into an executive session. I sent the warning out over the weekend. Shot across the bow. But, hopefully we can contain our time with this. So with that, we will adjourn at 8:25.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll have a motion to adjourn. Doug Johnson, have a second. Dan? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries.
Meeting adjourned at 8:25. 8:25.